Hello, hello. We are live, I believe.
Nice.
Yeah, hi.
Do I see people coming in? Yes, I see people coming in. That means it works.
So personal so far. Hello, Dana, Ina, Seb.
Some familiar faces coming in. We will give very little more time for some people to notice that the webinar has started, and then we will go. Yes. At this point, my usual joke is that we should start because André will take time to get in all his questions within 1 short hour. So let's go. Hello and welcome to our online format, medianet Games International introduces, where we shine a digital spotlight on interesting games companies live from the games capital, Berlin. My name is Florian. I am the head of medianet Games here at medianet. And yes, we are running this program and presenting you this talk today. Our guest is Lukas Deuschel, representing Hekate. Not
Hi,
many
everyone.
indie studios. Not many indie studios start their career with a horror game set during the First World War. Even fewer teams plunge into themes such as pain, despair, and corruption right from the start. Hekate is one of these, one in a million, who with a debut title Ad Infinitum have set themselves the goal of creating a unique gaming experience that features state-of-the-art audiovisual presentations, engaging gameplay, and captivating narratives with deep world building. Our moderator, who else could it be, is the fantastic André Bernhardt. He will lead the conversation through the studio's history, their successes and challenges, and of course, also their future plans. Before we start, I have a few short announcements and thank yous for our partners and our funders. So medianet Games International, this program, is a program of medianet Berlin-Brandenburg, whose network reaches beyond the games industry, connecting Berlin's and Brandenburg's media, creative, and digital industry to create meaningful connections and facilitate interdisciplinary synergies. The project is financed by the European Union through its European Regional Development Fund and the State of Berlin, namely the Senate Department of Economics, Energy, and Public Enterprises, through its program for internationalization. Please make sure to follow our social media channels and find podcast episodes, event information, and the newsletter on our website at medianet-games.international. And now, without further delay, please welcome our wonderful host, André, and guest, Lukas.
Applause, applause, applause. Thanks a lot for the warm words, Florian. Hello and welcome, everyone. As you heard it before by Florian, I'm the one and only André Bernhardt, the IndieAdvisor, and I'm here together with Lukas Deuschel today to talk with you through about Ad Infinitum and Hekate. And as always, as it's a cozy round today, there's the opportunity for you to ask questions. Therefore, you can use the fantastic question and answer tool somewhere in your menu bar at the bottom, where you can enter questions, and either way, we will, or Lukas will answer it at the end of the talk, or when it fits into the conversation, we'll come back to it earlier. So make use of that if there is something specific that it's not going to be covered from my side or from Lukas' side. There was even more long introduction words from my side right now. So, Lukas, say hello to our fantastic people over here as well. You get my personal applause at the moment.
Thank you so much, Andre and Florian, for having me here, and of course, the whole MediaNet team. It's a great opportunity. And yeah, I'm Lukas. I'm a co-founder of Hekate, a co-creative lead, audio director, and Yeah, basically Ad Infinitum is my baby. Yeah, I'm looking forward for the questions.
Yeah, sure. But before, I'm not sure whether everyone is familiar with the oeuvre of Hekate so far and has seen the trailer of Ad Infinitum. And therefore, I would love to ask Florian to hit the magic keys, Control, Alt, Shift, H, and so on, to show the trailer for a second, so everyone knows what we're going to talk about and what Ad Infinitum is about. Can you do the magic, Florian? Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
I am a soldier in this world and live to stand and fight. At night, your image shatters my sleep and draws me close to you. I am a soldier in this world and live to dream of home. If I were home, doors would shut and I would remain alone in the dark. I am a soldier not of this world, and live to die. To live, die, to live, to die, to live, to die. Yet still I go on, as if I must. I am a soldier in this world, and live to.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for showing. Lukas, how often have you seen the trailer already? Is there still something where you think like, oh no, this is something we should have fixed in between or something like that? There are still things that you are going to discover new every time you see the trailer?
Oh, I've seen it countless times, but I still very proud of the trailer. And the trailer was mostly done by Nakin, or a publisher.
Yeah.
They also work together with an external company. So I created a very, very good job with the editing of the trailer itself. But obviously, the trailer shows our hard work itself. So yeah, I really like the trailer. I can watch it a lot of times more. Yeah.
Tell us a bit about yourself and your background. I mean, first of all, what did you do before you founded or co-founded Hekate? Yeah, let's start like that.
Sure, I can tell you a bit about myself. So I grew up a bit more as the introverted kid. When I was in school, I draw a lot of comics and paintings, and I received the Monkey Islands one as a gift when I was around 7 years old. So this basically opened the door of video games for me, and I really loved games as a kid with a lot of storytelling and atmosphere. I did games basically like Simon the Sorcerer,
Yeah.
Riven, Mist, those kind of games. Um, yeah, and later I got onto a more music-oriented high school. And when I was 16, I bought the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind and played a bit around with the so-called construction set. This
Yeah.
is kind of an editor the developers brought on the DVD with the game itself. And yeah, I started working on my first mod, and I got in touch over an online community with some guy in Munich, Dennis Weich, and we worked 2 years on a very big mod, a so-called total conversion, basically a game set on the game
And that
called
was while you
Argent.
was sorry for interrupting, but that was while you were still in your school, still in school times.
Yes, I was still in
Okay.
high school.
Yeah.
My math grades were not the best, but I spent basically my private time in my childhood room working on this
Yeah.
mods. I was basically an award. I learned everything. I did a bit of scripting, story,
Yeah.
level building, created the first sound tracks on my old Yamaha keyboard.
Okay.
Yeah, and we worked 2 years on this mod. Over the time, our team grew a bit in size, and when it was released, we were also covered on some news media, like PC Power Play, for example. And after this total conversion, we decided to do the next one, even bigger on the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, called Nerim, and this one blew pretty much up. They won twice in a row the Mod of the Year award
Oh,
by
congratulations.
ModDB. And I think it was downloaded over 1 million times. A lot of magazines covered it.
Yeah.
But this was also the time when the mod was released where I left the team around 2009, and they then later made even bigger one called Endera, which won basically the Games Award. But I was not anymore part of the team then.
Okay.
But yeah, this was basically my start into the whole topic of creating your own games. So after my A levels, I started to apply in Berlin, HTW,
Yeah.
for a very new degree called game design, which was basically under the mentorship of Professor Thomas Bremer and Susanne
Mhm.
Brandhorst. And back then, I was still an all-rounder. I worked on several small student projects. Finally got my first internship at Deck 13 in Frankfurt, where I worked half a year on Jack Keen 2. And during this internship, I also kind of noticed that I really don't want to be a game designer or a scripter, which was my internship. So lesson learned. And I
But that has nothing to do with Deck 13, but the role itself simply was the
this is a great company. I really liked the team
yeah.
spirit back then, and also both CEOs were super down to earth. They always came into a room and gave us some feedback. I really liked the atmosphere, which was more like the work package of scripting game design, where I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm maybe not that logical as a person, you know. But it helped me also to basically focus a bit more on what I really want to do in games development. And during my student times, I already got more and more into game audio, and finally
Yeah.
I got my first gig as a freelancer, which is interesting at a company by Felix Dreyfus, because later Felix co-founded Hekate.
Yeah.
So this was like a small startup. They created Iron Dawn. It's like a turn-based strategy game with Unity, and I worked there 2 years, created a whole
Was it
soundtrack.
digitized at this time?
It's later was called Digitized, but before
Zombie
that,
something, zombie brains. No, zombie
Zombie
lab,
Food. Zombie
zombie
Food.
food. Ha.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
We worked on this project. I did like a Kickstarter,
Yeah.
and this was basically my first whole project or commercial project where I created like the whole soundtrack and sound design. Yeah, and then unfortunately they had to close down the company in 2013. So after my bachelor's degree, I moved to Hamburg,
Yeah.
started an internship at Periscope. They are now part of Synthesis.
Hmm.
They basically were doing audio for games, mostly voice recordings for games. And there I worked on several titles by ZeniMax, The Elder Scrolls Online,
Yeah.
for example. They also worked on The Evil Within, Wolfenstein New Order, and
Nice. Okay.
um, the work I did there was mostly the audio post-production. At some point, I also had to manage the audio post-production
Yeah.
between the studios. This was like a huge project, I think, with over 1 million lines of voice recordings and
Yeah.
hundreds of voice actors. So they worked with 3 other studios, and I had to coordinate basically that the recordings were scheduled correctly and we received the files back correctly and so on. Yeah, so then I started my master's degree in 2013 at HTW, and
Okay, so you went back to Berlin then from Hamburg afterwards to
no, basically I moved from Berlin to
yeah.
Hamburg, did the internship at Periscope, and also there I started to enroll at the HW
Okay.
for the master's degree called
Yeah.
Zeitabhängige Medien. And we basically the program of the master's degree was that over the course, I think, of around 2.5 years, we should work on a project together. So we had some basically game jams, and the teams settled together, and most people wanted to do like these kind of cute pixel style games, side scroller games.
Yeah.
One team was also very ambitious. They later ended up doing Lost Ember, Moon Eye.
Yeah.
And me and other like-minded people, we were much more like, the metalheads, darker scene persons. We really wanted to do a horror game
Yeah.
because we liked like Layers of Fear, Amnesia, this kind of games. And yeah, together with 3 other students, Niklas Luckwald, David Soler, and Benjamin Assig, we worked over the course of like 1 year on a proof of concept.
Yeah. Okay.
And basically, the idea of Ad Infinitum was born. Also, I have to say, back then it was, I think, the 100th anniversary of the start of World War One. So it was kind of a topic that was covered a lot by newslets.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we created this Abschlusspräsentationstrailer. Was
I mean, but the trailer is from the trailer at this time was from a vertical slice or the prototype or whatever
yes,
you have
yes.
built in there. It's not that you just built the trailer or something.
No, we created like a small demo which was like
Okay.
half an hour long. I think it
Yeah.
was still Unreal Engine 3, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Okay.
And uh, created this trailer, and I did, for example, I created this creature that climbed up with this claw on the tank, sound design, music, some of the assets. The other ones did the scripted logic,
Yeah.
and other 3D assets. But yeah, the proof of concept trailer was uploaded. I started working at Dedelic. The team was still kind of existing, but not making a lot of progress. I was in contact with them, and I started working at Dedelic full-time as a lead sound designer.
Okay.
Worked on projects like Pillars of the Earth, Silence, and they even won some prizes at the Deutscher Entwicklerpreis for audio. And yeah, that's basically where Ad Infinitum was born.
And it at this time it was already Ad Infinitum. Or did you come up with the title later on? No, it was this project from this student's idea from the beginning on then.
The title, basically, yes.
Okay.
But the project itself, not so much,
Yeah.
because maybe I can tell a bit more about this later, or I can tell about this now. I don't know what you prefer.
Yeah, let's talk about it now because I'm curious and
Okay.
I want sure that I understand it the right way.
Sure. So basically, after starting work at the Delic, the team was kind of active, but didn't make a lot of progress. And suddenly in 2017, the trailer blew up immensely, like
But
crazy overnight.
that was still the trailer that
Yeah.
the trailer that you did as your Abschlusspresentation or
Yes.
however it's
Yes.
called
Yes.
in English. Yes. Okay.
So some YouTuber, I think from Canada, Matchy, found the
Yeah.
trailer, and over a few days, we had over 17 million views and 300,000
Wow.
shares. Completely crazy. And that was 2017. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to quit my job and go back to the team, and let's do this project. I was a lot in contact with Thomas Lenz. He joined a little bit later, but kind of kept the project alive. And we wanted to really much do this project, but unfortunately, as you know, it is a lot with student projects. They were a bit quarreled in arguments, so it took some time to settle, and finally in start of 2019.
Yeah.
So basically, I think 3 years after the trailer was created or something.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
We finally founded the company. I got Felix Dreyfus involved, my former CEO, and we moved back to Berlin. One of the reasons was that the funding situation in Berlin was better than in Hamburg.
Yeah.
And also it was my hometown, so me and my wife, we wanted to return naturally. Yeah, and so we got a prototype funding from the Bundesförderung, worked like.
But before we go more into
Sure.
details on that, I mean, I think this is a huge accomplishment, yeah, and congratulations. If you're, I mean, just imagine you're a student, you're making your final present. What grade did you get in the end for the trailer? That would also be something I'm curious of.
Oh, 1-0. I think
Okay,
the best man.
so pretty awesome. That's good because I mean, in the end, then also when you get like something like 70 million views, I mean, how did you recognize suddenly that the thing is big? I mean, I can't imagine that you're sitting in front of the PC hitting F5, refreshing and checking how many people watched the trailer or something. I mean, one of you must discover suddenly that this thing is going viral somehow.
So I created like a Facebook group back then when we had the Abschlusspräsentation, like
Yeah.
the proof of concept thing, and uh, suddenly I got like the notification, like because it was shared on, I don't know, Unilad Gaming, Gaming Bible,
Yeah.
IGN, and I started to create like an Excel sheet to track all that coverage, but at some point I simply gave up. It was just blowing out of proportion. It was crazy.
And when you then you discovered we are onto something right now. And I can imagine, or I can only imagine that if you're like, it's a student project. You mentioned before 3 other people were working on it together with you on that. Was there suddenly this feeling of we are onto something? There is some kind of IP, and the rights to that need to be shared because not every one of the other people who made the trailer ended up in founding the company, if I got it right.
Yeah, it's a bit complicated. So basically, people left the team before the hype started. Some moved back to their home countries. Also, the problem was more or less, as I was working at the Delic, other people started to do some other jobs, and then they more focused on this kind of job. And there was also kind of a bit of an arguments going on when I returned. I was like, oh, everything is fine. And I found out, oh shit, people hate each other. And I ended up basically with Thomas. We really wanted to do it. We really wanted to take the risk in founding, while the other ones were more thinking about doing it as a side project thing to their main job. And also, yeah, you have to invest money, you have to really take some risks, and that's why I think not everyone from the team ended up doing this.
Co-founding the company then.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you then took the idea, found Thomas, and together you founded the company to work to work on the project. Tell us a bit about what was the scope at this time? I mean, was it more like I can imagine when you mentioned like you did full conversions before, that was something that you could. Well, to be honest, I don't know how much time do you have invest into a full conversion, how long it takes to get something like this done. But talking about a game now, was there this idea? Did you have some ideas of, okay, it will take 1 year and we need this kind of funding? I mean, when did you came to the point to define the scope?
Oh, okay. So this basically took quite some time. At the start, we just had like some very early prototypes, but we didn't really had a clear idea about the scope itself. Also, back then it was not that story focused, the game. It was more action focused.
Okay.
And I think you get a much better idea of the scope of a project when you really much start to set up a clear concept, like a game design document, a clear story document, and so on. And we really started doing this by the start of 2019. We basically completely we launched the project with everything. Also because we decided to move on to Unreal Engine 4.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
basically, I started setting up a very comprehensive game design document where we had this first descriptions about the main character, about side characters, about the creatures, about the tools,
Yeah.
about the environments. Then I got Matthias Kempke involved. I knew from the Delic. He was our writer, and he basically beefed out all of these ideas and started to create much more throughout character descriptions based on those first ideas. And yeah, we had a lot of meetings. We had a lot of creative meetings where we defined the concepts together. But also what very much helped to define the scope is working on this vertical slice of the
Yeah.
game, which was funded by the Prototypenförderung, prototype funding of the German government, which allowed us to very much develop like almost 1 year on
That
a
was
full part
the
of the game.
prototype funding of Median Board or here in Berlin, or was it the one of the Bundesförderung, like the public funding of the state of Germany?
It was basically of the Bundesförderung.
Yeah, okay.
We
Yeah,
also,
2019, the early de minimis one, then I guess up to
yeah,
200,000. Okay.
exactly. So
Yeah.
basically, we invested our own money into the company, friends and family money, basically,
Yeah.
and managed to secure this prototype funding, which allowed us to move into a small office in Berlin-Lichtenberg back then. And
Okay, nice.
we had like a small team of around 5 to 6 people,
Yeah.
and we created like around 1 hour of the game, the Lazarette,
Yeah.
which is basically chapter 3 of the game.
Okay.
And this allowed us then to search for a publisher,
Yeah.
this demo. And together with the trailer and the vertical slice, we got in touch with publishers and finally found a Naken at the end of 2020.
Before we come to before we go too deep into the publisher acquisition, the publisher funding or process of finding a publisher, I'm still bit more interested in regarding the market research that you did. I mean, I imagine you have this trailer and you have like 70 million people watching this trailer, and I can imagine they all like writing comments about what they believe what this game could be about and stuff. And as you mentioned before, first hand you thought of it will be more like an action game. I don't know, like Battlefield 1918 or something like that. But how did you flesh out then in the end that it's not going to be the regular action shooter or something like that, but more going into a specific direction or in this specific horror direction?
So basically, several reasons. First of all, technical limitations, because the more advanced your gameplay is,
Yeah.
the more very talented game designers, programmers you have to have on board. And when we started the company, we were basically lacking this role.
Okay.
Um, so these technical limitations forced us a bit more into this direction to say, let's do it more the layers of fear amnesia approach
Yeah.
than the, let's say, Resident Evil approach. Also, we did kind of a market research at the start of setting up the company, like a business plan, and analyzed also our Facebook group. Basically, I think we had 3,000 followers, and
Oh,
we
wow.
were able to see like, okay, it's around this demographic structure.
Yeah.
But honestly, the market research was something that was later done more by the publisher when we really much kicked up the whole marketing machine of the game, as we were much more focused on the production itself.
That's understandable. I was more about to get to know, like, you have to point the game design into certain directions, and maybe you thought like, okay, it could be because we get so much feedback as people expect to run around in Doom and have this kind of stuff. Is this the right way to go this direction, or where you're just like, no, it needs to be. I mean, you explained it a bit already that you have that you needed to do something within the limitations of your team, and I guess you were pretty sure that there's no disconnect within the audience that you have over there.
Yes, so absolutely. Basically, I think a lot of people were expecting, when they saw the first trailer, some kind of game where you can fight the creatures,
Yeah,
shoot them. It makes sense in a war setting, you know, that you have weapons and combat. But apart from the technical limitations, the more we digged into the whole topic and the seriousness of war and we wanted to portray, the
yeah,
more we decided against it, because we wanted to do not a game about fighting the war,
yeah.
but the consequences of war. So a complete different approach to the whole aspect of combat.
Which perfectly leads to the question of Dana, who is asking, like, how did you go about addressing topics such as shell shock, PTSD? Did you consult any specific literary or psychoanalytical resources? I mean, how did you dig yourself into World War One then to get the understanding right, and as well as the history to a certain degree?
That's a very good question. So there was a very long phase where we had a lot of discussions, especially between me and Matthias, and also Tom was involved here, about crafting the story, the characters, their backgrounds. We very early on decided to talk about the topic of PTSD. I
Yeah,
myself am a big fan of Jacob's Ladder, the movie, and myself also dig a lot into the whole topic of psychoanalysis, because I also was going through a therapy at some point of my life, just before basically the hype started,
okay,
and ended up like reading a lot of C.G. Jung, the concept of integrating your shadow. Um, and yeah, regarding research, we spent a lot of time researching not only like the historic aspects, for example, for each characters. We dug really deep, and sometimes very coincidentally, we have, for example, the character of Karl von Schmidt, the father, who's
okay,
basically creating like chemical warfare agents. And he was very much influenced by Fritz Haber, and that was a complete coincidence,
yeah.
because I had my wedding in a Fritz Haber house, and then I researched him. I was like, oh shit, that fits perfectly into our game. Sorry, my wording, uh, because his wife, Fritz Haber's wife, killed herself from suicide because she was disgusted by Fritz Haber's patriotism and influence on the war. And basically, this influenced not only the character of the father, Karl von Schmidt, but also the character of Magdalena von Schmidt, who's severely depressed by a husband and almost is a bit psychotic
Yeah.
the more she thinks about the loss of her sons. We also had research for the objects, the assets. Tom spent a lot of time looking into certain weapon models, car models. For the sound design, for example, we bought some gas mask replicas to
Yeah.
record them, or some old World War One boots. I don't know if this answers your questions. Hopefully.
hopefully to a certain hopefully to I guess you answered it pretty good, but this sounds like you had must have a lot a lot of paper produced where you research every aspect of war and the backstory to a certain degree to make sure that you really understand what's going on there, and to transport the topic into the player's mind.
Mhm.
But I mean, on the one hand, you have all this amount of research and everything, and now you have this process you mentioned. Like you had the production time was imagined to be 1 year for the prototype funding that you received.
Yes, like 1 year for the vertical slice. We
Yeah.
basically we launched the project in 2019 completely from scratch. Only the name was
Okay, because you also switched the engine, you had to start
yeah.
everything all over again.
Yeah, and basically everything we had before were just, you know, a trailer, some
Yeah,
ideas. Okay, what were wonder creatures, but
yeah.
no substance at
Okay.
all, no character portrayal, no ideas about what topics we want to deal with and the story and in the game itself. Then we worked 1 year on this vertical slice, and in 2021, the start of
Yeah.
2021, until the release last year, September 13, we did the production together with Nathan.
And how you were, if you recall it, what was your elevator pitch then to Nakan somehow? I mean, how did you pitch the game to them then at this time, or was it already self-explaining regarding the content that was there?
Basically, we had some help here from Sören Lars,
Yeah,
who's like a business consultant, and he contacted a bunch of publishers, and Nakan was interested into the concept. We sent them like keys to our vertical slice demo so they could play it. We
yeah.
sent them the trailer and a bit of the story behind the hype. And yeah, they liked it. We later, I think we also showcased like a small pitch deck, but I think that was not the selling point, more like the
Okay.
vertical slice and the background story with the trailer hype.
I mean, that was 2021. It's hard to believe, but I guess there was still full pandemic times, or with all the restrictions. Did you meet the publisher before signing the contract somehow, or did they sign everything based on the stuff and the material that Sören sent over?
Basically like this. So when we started working on the vertical slice, we still had like the pre-corona time. So
Yeah.
we met in the office with the small team, and then the corona started. And yeah, basically everyone was sitting in their home. And
But you had the gas mask already. Ah, I'm sorry, just
yeah, we already had a gas mask and some stocked beans and a toilet paper. But basically, no, we didn't met them. We met them basically after signing the contract, and when the restrictions were a bit more relaxed. I think the
yeah.
first meeting we had with them in the summer of 2021, when our producer and parts of the marketing team came here to our new office. Yeah.
Okay, so that was then 2021 when you could go into full production then.
Yeah.
And how much stuff was still to do at this time? I mean, you had the vertical slice, and now you have the money from the publisher. And now you could imagine, okay, now we are going to finish it. It will take. I mean, what did you promise, and did you keep the promise
So
regarding the
basically,
time frame,
we
this timeline? Yes.
we already had like a pretty comprehensive story document. We also had like a game design document.
Yeah.
And based on this, we planned the scope of the game. We decided, for example, we have like 3 main chapters focusing on the family members. Each chapter will have 2 creatures and so on. Each chapter will end with kind of a semi-boss fight. And based on this, basically concept documents, we planned the scope. We had a very rough
Yeah.
production schedule planning at the start. Over time, it became much more sophisticated. I also started early on to establish Scrum in our team. So we had like regular sprint reviews where we looked at basically the progress made. We had regular meetings with the producer.
Yeah.
We had to send up basically bunch of documents and content to them by the end of the month, showcasing them our progress made. Yeah.
And I mean, in the beginning, you said like, okay, it's going to take, or what was the release plan for in the beginning?
So basically, I think we had around 2 years planned in at the
Yeah.
start of it. I think originally we intended to release the game by spring 2023.
Yeah.
So the idea was to have basically the Gold Master around January, I think, 2023. At the start of 2022, we already kind of felt like, oh, there's still a lot of to-dos. We want to have a very high quality. So we got in touch with Naken as early as possible and explained them the situation. And they basically allowed us to move the release window a little bit
Yeah. Okay.
to autumn of 2023.
And what was the like biggest challenges that you discovered while making the game? I mean, it's one thing to produce the papers and everything, but then building the actual gameplay out of that, especially with, I guess you had to ramp up the team at this time. More people came in that somehow were working remotely. I'm not sure how the restriction were changing in 2022 then again. But yeah, I mean, what were the biggest challenges then, or let's rephrase it. So how many people were you at peak time production somehow?
Okay, so basically at peak time production, I think we were around 15,
Yeah,
15 people in-house. We also had a lot of freelancers working for us. And obviously that was one of the bigger challenges is to learn how to manage a team of this size.
yeah,
Um, with matching basically the milestone deliveries, making sure all goals are commonly understood. That's a challenge, this learning process. But over time, it's essentially basically the trust inside of the team grows and grows, and that helps a lot because uh, people are proactively working on their task, even though we use the framework of Scrum. Other challenges we faced, there were a bunch of challenges, to be honest. Somehow we kind of always managed to jump over them. But I think, for example, we had a lot of work to do, especially me and Tom, as we were basically the creative leads, the co-CEOs.
yeah,
We had to fill like, let's say 5 or 6 roles. So the biggest challenge basically was to uh, do this kind of work for a prolonged time.
yeah,
And that meant for me, for example, oftentimes during the week I was in meetings, be
yeah,
it with the producer, with the freelancers, with the recording studio, with our writer, with the publisher, and then in the evening and on the weekend, I could, for example, work on the soundtrack or the sound design. So this time-consuming work was one of the biggest challenges.
I mean,
Um,
to get it right then. So you had, I mean, you had the management role because someone has to take care that everyone knows what to do, and also everyone else, like the publisher, knows what is going on at this time. But besides of that, you also had like the producing role of like you were the one who were generating and adding the sounds to the game itself, or not
yeah,
only sounds and music. Was it
yeah,
everything? Okay, and
everything.
audio and loca then, I guess, localization. Well,
Localization was mostly covered also by the publisher, by our
yes,
producer, but I still had to basically make sure the text from our story documents were translated correctly, sending them to the localization studio and receiving it back, and that took also a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine that this is a quite challenging task. But I mean, the topic of juggling hats and different roles within the production of a huge game, and I guess there's a lot of indies that can talk about that. But how was it regarding crunch at this time within the team? Could you like even if it sounds bad, but could you restrict it to yourself somehow and only like make sure that not the whole team needs to be in full crunch mode all the time? Or was it only the people within management positions somehow that had to endure the tenure then somehow?
So basically, no one in our team was forced to do crunch.
Yeah.
We had some phases where people worked more, but it was always they decided to do it. And that's very important to say, especially when we released the game, there was obviously some crunch involved. It is impossible in such a team size to launch a game,
Yeah.
which is playable without a lot of blockers or crashes. But everyone that crunched at this time, they were compensated. So they basically received even like payouts for this overtime work to a certain extent. Obviously, they might have worked more, but we tracked it somehow. And before the launch, we mostly avoided inside of the team the
Yeah.
crunch. But yeah, basically me and Tom mostly were the ones that had to crunch a ton, to be honest. Yeah.
Were there points where you were thought like close to the point of, okay, damn it, this is I'm done with it. I can't take it any further. I don't see the progress or whatever. The doubts of doing something.
Yeah, definitely there were some points where um yeah, where you were seriously contemplating to give up.
Yeah.
Especially because the amount of work, the amount of pressure
Yeah.
on our shoulders was quite high. But somehow we kind of overcame the situations, and I think, at least on my side, it is mostly due to a very understanding wife,
Yeah.
who basically, to be honest, she had to endure a lot. Our first child was born and the first year of the production at Naken.
Oh, okay.
And so I missed out a lot at the start
Yeah.
of the production, and she basically had to take care of a lot here.
Yeah.
And it was very hard for me to be that available, even though I tried it. But it's not easy in this situational wall to basically go in Elternzeit, you know. It's
Yeah.
almost impossible, especially if you are like decision maker,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah.
I can only imagine how this responsibility then that you have to do work-wise as well as your life-wise is really tearing you apart somehow. Did you have the chance to put this into the game, or at least use like the the challenges then to overcome them somehow in an artistic way within is it reflected within the game somehow, the struggle?
Maybe not the crunch itself or the stress.
Yeah.
I would definitely say some of the underlying topics in the game are definitely included. I myself resolved a lot of personal trauma
Yeah.
from my childhood family in the game. I mean, I didn't endure war, but the whole topic of transgenerational conflict
Yeah.
is of uttermost important to me. Um, there are definitely some artistic, I mean, the whole game is basically some kind of artistic expression of ourselves. Maybe that's also one of the reasons why it might be less gameplay focused, but more, you know, story focused, emotional focused.
Yes, we had a short discussion before we started the talk or the recent days, and I mean we had this short dialogue about whether it's a more like flow-like experience compared to, I don't know, Guitar Hero pressing buttons at the right time and being in the mental state, or more the narrative and story-driven experience. And yeah, as you just mentioned, it's the latter one, where it's more like how the game itself tells you a story than in detail. But how soon or how early did you start out to check the gameplay with the community? Because again, I think there's this, people have this game in their mind that they're expecting to come out sooner or later, and then they're eager to see it. And how good did it fit to their I mean, how was their feedback on the first playables? Or how soon did you get them involved, and how was their feedback on the first playables?
So when we had our proof of concept already back then, we went to some conventions.
Yeah.
For example, in Hamburg, when we had our vertical slice, we went to a convention here in Berlin and Vilnius, and every time like players could play our game even before we sign up with the publisher.
What's the age rating? Sorry, is it 18 plus or
USK 18? Yeah.
Okay.
So we always made sure no kids would play the game, obviously.
Yes.
But yeah, we received a lot of feedback from players back then. We also played a lot in our team. We let friends play the game, and Nakin also did a great job with the QA. They even got like some kind of focus group test, like a closed group of people that never played or heard of the game before, playing the game and giving their feedback, I think around beta. And this kind of stuff we did a lot. And we collected this feedback, and we did a lot of things multiple times, iterated them. Let's say, for example, the tools usage, how we use save games, the whole boss fights. Basically, I think they were one of the biggest struggles because we had to rework them so much until they really made a bit of more sense and were enjoyable.
And when it was released, how was the feedback then at this? Oh no, sorry. The platforms where you have received the games on, it was developed at the same time. I mean, did you do the ports over other platforms as well, or was that something that the publisher did?
No, we basically got an external company involved from Poland, the Crunching Koalas, over contact Max Kübler.
Yeah.
And they basically created the ports of the game for the consoles.
Yeah.
We also have some dev kits where we tested it ourselves, but our team didn't port the game, but fixed a lot of bugs for consoles specifically. How the game was received, basically, yeah, we were quite surprised. The people that played our game received it quite favorable. I think right now it is trending at a very positive on Steam. So 9 of 10. And also I collected like basically all media coverage I could find. I think almost 80 reviews at the end, and on average I think we were around 7.55. So it's quite good, to be honest, for our first title. Obviously some news outlets preferred it more. For example, I think PC Games very much liked the game. Other news outlets maybe not that much, especially the ones that were maybe aiming more for a very highly interactive experience with strong gameplay. They might have been a bit more disappointed, but most people were very much putting their finger on like that's a very unique story we're telling. And I think one of the biggest rewards for me and the team was to see that there were a lot of people, honestly, a lot of people that played through our game and cried at the end because they were affected by the story.
Okay.
And that's something I'm very proud that we were able to basically invoke those emotions that we plan out, and it works.
I totally understandable, because I mean, in the end, with your artistic work, you somehow want to reach people to a certain degree, and therefore it's great to see that this worked out quite well with the production. I mean, it's sad as we are slowly running, or more or less slowly running out of time already. Just to sum it up for the production process. I mean, first of all, congratulations to being able to stay somehow in the scope for your first project, for your first commercial project as a team, to being able to deliver that, bringing that out to market. Even this is not, I mean, it's not a simple feat. Everyone knows whoever developed a game itself, him or herself. But what would you say is the biggest learning that you would take from the development process that you discovered or experienced by yourself, that you would pass on to future teams or future development?
Oh, there are a lot of learnings, to be honest.
Short sentences.
Okay, first of all, I think you should very much have a clear vision of what you're going to do. You need to focus on both, not only the vision, but also on business, because at the end of the day, you have to pay your rents, you have to pay your team. I think one of the most important ones is you have to find the right people to found your company, because you inevitably will have to work very, very close together and come to agreements on all aspects of the production. So it might be a very good idea to have clear ideas of who is in charge of what. You shouldn't have any areas where no one is in charge, but you should also avoid having areas where more people might be in charge. That's also an important lesson learned for me. And I think the most important one is, if you really believe in your vision and you're convinced in it, then it's your task to basically make it happen. Don't just wait for it to happen. At the end of the day, every passion project is only born out of hard work.
Absolutely. While I'm encouraging people or the viewers to ask more questions if they have some last question regarding the success of the title then itself. How were the sales numbers? Was it?
Yeah, I can't tell too much about it,
Okay.
to be honest. But I think in general, the game was received quite favorable by the users and the reviews themselves. And that's, I think, for me, one of the biggest accomplishments for a debut title.
Yeah, still, congratulations. There are some questions here. First of all, thanks to me as well as yours about this exciting and interesting talk so far. There's this question of an anonymous viewer, like, do you have any tips on how to create immersive atmosphere?
Oh, basically, it's
in very short words. Sorry.
It's basically a multidisciplinary work. Lighting plays a huge role. Honestly, the atmosphere that is built up to the story itself, and obviously, as it is my domain, audio plays a huge role. So not only the music, I mean, music is obviously very important because it's a storytelling tool. But honestly, the soundscape also, the atmosphere soundscape, it tells a story on its own. Let's say you're in a certain area, the soundscape, what you cannot see because it's basically out of your field of vision, can tell a story on its own. And yeah, oh, it's a interesting question, but honestly, I think I would need much more time to dig more into it.
I can only imagine, as time is the keyword in this conversation. But hopefully, anonymous person, this helped to you understand a bit more about how the atmosphere was created. I mean, now we talked a long time about you being a musician and everything, but I forgot to ask, what instrument are you actually playing?
I basically piano.
Yes.
But when I compose the music, I basically write down the notes in the DAW, basically for each instrument. But I don't play like the violin or something. I just write it down as a partitur in the
Yes.
DAW, basically. Yeah.
And okay. Yeah, as time is over right now, we can't go any more into details. First of all, no, last question before I go to start the thank you round. Can you tell anything about the next title already? Short answer.
Unfortunately, no,
Okay,
unfortunately not, no.
let's keep it like that and make sure to follow Hekate on every social media account. Is the Facebook group still active?
Yeah, we have like a LinkedIn and Facebook group for our company. There are
Yeah.
also the Facebook group for the game itself, which is not managed by us, but managed by our publisher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lukas, thanks a lot for your time and sharing these deep insights about the development process of Ad Infinitum and the history of Hekate. Big thanks and shout out to all the viewers who spent their time listening to us talking about these topics. Big thanks also to MediaNet Games International about hosting us here. And yeah, that sums it up so far, the second edition of MediaNet Games Introducers. We'll have another one upcoming, but this one sadly is over so far. So thanks a lot, everyone, and hopefully see you all soon.
Yeah, thank you a lot for the opportunity and everyone that was part of this. And yeah, it's a huge honor to talk about this game as it meant a lot to me. And yeah, thank you everyone and the whole MediaNet team.
Everyone who watched you talking about it could feel that. So it's great to see passionate people making passionate games. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a beautiful evening and see you all soon. Thanks, Lukas. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.